Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today into a plant, one you probably know mainly for making you sneeze, ragweed.
Ambrosia artemisiaefolia. Yep. Most people just think allergies, right?
Yeah.
Hay fever season misery.
Exactly. But we're looking at it through a different lens today. We're using an older text, William Boericke's Homeopathic Materia Medica.
And this text comes from the world of homeopathy, which, it's a whole system based on cures, often using really diluted substances. It catalogs plants, minerals, other things.
Right, and what they were associated with symptom-wise. So our mission here is to pull out what this specific text says about ragweed. Because honestly, it's probably not what you're thinking.
It really isn't. The modern view is mostly about causing allergies.
Yeah.
But Boericke, he lists ambrosia, ragweed, as a potential remedy for hay fever symptoms.
A remedy, okay. So what kind of symptoms does it mention?
Well, specifically things like intense lacrimation, that's, really watery eyes, and also intolerable itching of the eyelids. Pretty classic hay fever stuff.
Huh. So it mirrors the symptoms, but flips it to a treatment in their view.
That's the idea in homeopathy. But it doesn't stop there. The text actually mentions it for some types of whooping cough, too.
Whooping cough. Okay, expanding beyond just allergies then.
Yeah, and it talks about its general action being on the respiratory tract in its entire length, stopped up.
Yeah.
Pretty comprehensive.
Stopped up.
Yeah.
I think many of us know that feeling, so does it detail the nasal symptoms more?
It does. It lists watery coryza, basically a really runny nose, lots of sneezing, watery discharge, that whole picture. And interestingly, nosebleed.
Nosebleed. Really?
Yep, and also that general stuffed up feeling of nose and head.
Wow, okay. Nosebleed is not something I'd typically link there at all. So it's irritation, runny nose, congestion, and bleeding. What about further down, like chest symptoms?
It mentions irritation of trachea and bronchial tubes, and specifically links that to asthmatic attacks and a wheezy cough.
So asthma-like symptoms too.
Exactly. And it even compares ambrosia to other remedies in the text for asthma, like aril and eucalypt, sort of placing it in context for that kind of issue.
Okay. And you mentioned the eyes before, the itching and watering. Does it list other eye things?
It does mention the eyes separately, too, noting they smart and burn, and repeats lacrimation. So it really emphasizes those eye complaints.
Burning, smarting, watering, itching. Okay.
Now, here's where it takes a really surprising turn. If you're only thinking respiratory, the text lists digestive uses.
Digestive. For ragweed?
Yep. It mentions many forms of diarrhea.
Whoa. Okay, that's completely different.
And it even specifies diarrhea happening during summer months, which, is peak ragweed season. And it also lists dysentery.
Dysentery. That's pretty serious. So summer diarrhea and even dysentery linked to ragweed in this homeopathic context.
It's quite a leap from just itchy eyes, isn't it? It really widens the scope of how this plant was viewed, seemingly based on symptom observation and maybe that seasonal timing.
Definitely broadens the picture. Does it compare it to other remedies for anything else, like it did for asthma?
It does for hay fever. It lists comparison remedies like Sabadia, Wayethia, Sucanac, Arjad, Arundo. It just shows how they sort of cross-reference these things within their system.
Right, mapping out the potential uses. And what about dosage? Does the text give any hints there? Again, just reporting what it says?
He gives us examples. Tincture, the third potency. And for nosebleed, specifically 10 drops in water during and after attack of epistaxis.
Okay.
And it notes in hay fever, high potencies. So yeah, it gives an idea of the preparation and potency they thought was appropriate within that homeopathic framework.
So if we pull all this together, the main takeaway seems to be that while we today mostly see ragweed as an allergy trigger, this historical homeopathic text, Boericke's Materia Medica, paints it as a remedy for a surprisingly wide range of things, from hay fever symptoms, coughs, nosebleeds.
All the way to summer diarrhea and dysentery. It's a completely different profile based on their observations and system.
Yeah. And what this kind of deep dive really highlights is how these older texts cataloged plants based on observed symptoms, creating connections that might seem, well, quite strange to us now.
It's a snapshot of a different way of thinking about illness, about plants, about how the body works, really. Very different from our modern scientific or even personal experience of something like ragweed.
It really is. So maybe something for you to think about is this. How does cataloging remedies based on these detailed symptom pictures, like in Boericke's text, compare to how modern medicine identifies treatments, often focusing on specific diseases or biological mechanisms?
Yeah, what does that difference tell us about how our understanding of healing and maybe our relationship with the natural world has shifted over time?
Something to definitely mull over.